First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello everyone, this is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. Thanks for joining us. We are live streaming here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. We do this every weekday at 11 a.m. after Good Day Oregon and 1 p.m. right now after our noon news. And what we are talking about here to start the show off is the announcement that Christine Drazan, the Oregon State Senator from Canby, is going to be running for governor. She made this announcement earlier today. Presumably this will be against incumbent Governor Tina Kotek, although she has not officially announced, Kotek being that she is going to rerun. It does look that way. So should that happen, we wanted to find out, just where the political spectrum really is right now in the state of Oregon. To do so, we turned to John Horvick from DHM Research. And what they do, if you've never seen one of our segments with them before, is just take a look at polls. It's actually talking to people from Oregon and just getting an understanding of where they're at. And so what we wanted to do is compare where things were in the previous run a few years ago to where they are now, what some of those big issues are, and what the data shows are the big things that people are concerned about and what could be happening here going forward. So we took a look at the data, and well, John Horvick did rather, and we talked about that, and so let's jump right into it here. Well, John, thanks for being here with us to talk about this, something that maybe some people were expecting to happen, but at least today we have the official announcement that Christine Drazan is running for governor of Oregon, and this is a repeat. This is something that's coming back here again, and so I wanted to talk to you about that to start off. With this announcement today, from your standpoint, what's different now compared to the previous time when she ran for governor?
Well, there's probably several differences we can talk about, but a big one is that the national political environment is very different. The last gubernatorial election was in 2022. There was sort of peak inflation with the Democratic administration, COVID, lots of things that nationally, and some sort of sense even here in Oregon, that the opportunities for Republicans was pretty decent. Now, if we go back in time, Christine Drazan didn't have the success that she maybe thought that political environment would allow. There's probably some good reasons to think about how that translates in 2026. But that's a big difference. Of course, the other big difference is Tina Kotek's an incumbent now. 4 years ago, she was running for governor for the first time, and so now Kotek has a record to run on. 4 years ago, she was a Democrat. She was the majority leader for a long time, and certainly on the coattails of Governor Brown. But now she has her own record to run on, and the successes or failures will certainly be highlighted in this campaign in 2026, presuming that Christine Drazan wins the nomination and that Kotek does on the Democratic side too, which certainly will be my prediction at this point.
Right. Yeah. I think right now I can't think of anybody else who would be more of a front runner than the two of them. But yeah, just presumably it's a rematch there.
The other big thing we didn't say is in 2022 there was a third-party candidate, Betsy Johnson. I'm not aware of an effort like that right now that's occurring, and it's important to remind folks there was an expectation when Betsy Johnson ran 4 years ago that she was going to weaken the Democrat in that race, the Tina Kotek in that race. Betsy Johnson had been a Democrat, and there was a sense that she would appeal to some Democrats and peel some votes away from Tina Kotek. If you look at the counties that Christine Drazan won in 2022, those are the counties that Betsy Johnson did better. And so it's hard to know exactly how those voters would have gone, but the evidence would suggest, I think, that Betsy Johnson probably harmed Christine Drazan more than she harmed Tina Kotek. That's another big difference between what we see right now in the political landscape and 4 years ago.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be curious to know, what that head-to-head would have been like if it was just those two. But looking at, the political landscape now, we can only guess what it's going to be, in 2026. But looking at it right now, what are some of those big issues that she's going to be running on, now that Kotek does have a record of being in the governorship?
Well, so when Tina Kotek ran 4 years ago or 3 years ago, some of the big things that she said that she was going to worked towards and accomplished that she'd want the voters to hold accountable for were building housing to address homelessness and housing affordability in the state, to improve our state's education outcomes, and to address mental health. And certainly on the metrics that's easiest to measure, she talked about, I think it was 36,000 homes a year in Oregon. If it's not that number, it's some number close to that. And we're nowhere near that. We're far below. Now, she would say, and probably rightly so, that the economic conditions, whether it's high inflation, tariffs, et cetera, that have made it difficult to build that housing. But she set a goal and we haven't met it. Oregon continues to rank towards the bottom or near the bottom of our education outcomes and our mental health outcomes, and how that it touches to people's individual health, but also things like homelessness. I think most voters would tell us that they haven't improved. And so on our own measures, there is a lack of success, and some will certainly say failure. At the legislative level, I think that the thing that will be most memorable at this point of Tina Kotek's tenure as governor would be the failure of the transportation package in this last legislative session. Now, there was a special session and something much smaller got passed, but that high-profile failure in the legislature will also, I think, she'll be looked at as her ability, be judging her ability to move an agenda forward. So those are certainly things that she'll be measured against. What Christine Drazan will run on is a positive vision. It's easier in some respects to be in the opposition in the legislature, where she's been the last couple of years, and to oppose things. But what is she going to support? And importantly, who is she going to support? Politics is nationalized now. It has been for a while, but it certainly is today, and it is even more so with Donald Trump in the White House. In a state that has more Democrats than Republicans, in a state that hasn't elected Republicans, since for in the last 40 years, this is a Democratic state. This is a Democratic state at a time when the Republican president is deeply, deeply unpopular. Can she separate herself from Trump? And will Trump force issues onto Oregon that will make it difficult for her to do that? Things like troops, federal troops in Portland. That is a real hurdle, I think, for a Republican to win statewide in the state.
Looking at, and I don't know if you have any polls, though, looking at, people in Oregon, where they're leaning towards, what some of the things are, that they're concerned about. I guess maybe going to Kotek first. Do you have any sense of how popular or unpopular she is with the general population of Oregon?
Yeah, we check in on Kotek's, sentiment among Oregon voters on a fairly regular basis. The last time we checked, she was basically split. Something like 45% had a positive impression, 45% had a negative impression, give or take a couple percentage points on either side of that. But basically, voters are pretty ambivalent about her. Although I will say that her positive numbers were somewhat higher the last time we measured. I think in September. Part of that is that the people who are responding don't know, who are unsure, had declined as well. So some of those folks who were sort of holding out or weren't paying much attention, allocated themselves to positive or negative. But voters are pretty ambivalent about her. Given the challenges that Oregon has had in the last number of years, that probably is not too surprising. The issues that voters are focused on remain to be the issues that they're focused on 4 years ago. When we ask Oregonians what's the most important issue in the state, it continues to be homelessness. Other issues behind it are housing affordability in general, drug addiction, mental health, crime. It's the same constellation of issues that we saw 4 years ago, at least as of today. Things may change over the course of the next 12 months or so, but those issues that the candidates are focused on last year remain to be top issues for Oregonians today.
And I was going to say, just to clarify too, for those big issues like that, that's, from your polling, is that across the political spectrum, economic?
Across the political spectrum, and in fact, sort of concerns around homelessness tend to be a little bit higher in the Portland metro area, which obviously is Democratic. Partly or largely, that's going to have to do with just the concentration of homelessness in the Portland metro area. But when we ask Oregonians in all parts of the state, we hear homelessness, whether it's Eastern Oregon or on the coast or in Southern Oregon, is the top issue for the state. Same with affordability, same with concerns about crime. These are maybe the particular differences in different parts of the state. The intensity may vary across the state, but these are the key issues: urban, rural, east of the mountains, west of the mountains, north and south.
So yeah, something important for everybody there when it comes to that. So they're both going to have to be addressing those. As you mentioned, Kotek, with now at least a record in office to run on or against, and the same thing for Drazan to run, against what she's done so far, what Kotek has. When it comes to Drazan, is there any indication of how she would tackle these issues compared to Kotek? I'm not sure if there's any kind of a record, with her.
It's early days, and certainly she's gonna. If she heard me hesitate in answering this question, she probably would push back and say, I have plans and I've advocated things in the legislature. I will say this: it's difficult in the minority in the legislature to get your ideas heard. And of course, Republicans in the legislature will complain to Democrats and Tina Kotek weren't listening to their concerns and their policies. But also the fact of the matter is that they've been in the minority, and the job of the minority is more frequently to say no than it is to put together an agenda that can pass. And so one of the things that Drazan will need to do over the course of the next period. I mean, maybe you can be successful in just saying, hey, this person, you had a choice between me and her 4 years ago. She said that she would accomplish things. She's failed and you're unhappy. Give me a try. Maybe that's the winning message and can, be successful. But it is likely that voters are also going to be looking for, what is she going to do? And I'm sure she'll come up with a number of policies. Many of them will probably be smart and popular, but I think it would be difficult for an Oregonian to say today, what is Christine Drazan's agenda?
And based on polling, just to go back to one other thing you mentioned, about politics being nationalized, which is certainly the case across the country. Will this, based on some of the data that you've seen, is there anything that that would maybe persuade Oregonians, or is the association with Trump, like say she's in line with Trump and Trump even campaigns for her, is that going to be something that would, based on previous polling data, be a deal breaker for Oregonians as a whole to vote for her?
I would be very surprised if Trump campaigned for Christine Drazan, and even more surprised if Christine Drazan wanted Trump's attention. That would be a detriment to Republican statewide office in Oregon at this point. Something to remember is that in the 2024 presidential election, nearly every state moved towards Donald Trump compared to 2020. That is, pretty much everywhere across the country became a little bit more Republican or a lot more Republican in 2024 compared to 2020, with an exception of Oregon. That national brand of Trump is particularly difficult here. So she wouldn't want that. Another thing that she wouldn't want is abortion to be an elevated issue. In 2022, it was a pretty high-profile issue because of the Dobbs decision and timing around that. I think abortion has ebbed, at least it has nationally as a salient issue, and polling would suggest that, polling here in Oregon and polling nationally. But no doubt, Democrats will try to make that an issue. Even though if voters tell us it's not the most important thing to them, it's very clear that they trust Democrats more on the issue than Republicans. And so that will create some tension for her. And then just, how, again, I'll just repeat myself, right now, President Trump has been trying to send federal military to Portland. The courts have been holding this up. It creates two challenges for Christine Drazan. One, I don't think it'll be popular in Oregon if that were to happen. And two, it just makes Trump the story. And that will make it more difficult for her to separate herself from Trump. So I would presume a candidate, Christine Drazan, would rather Trump turn his attention elsewhere. Oregon.
Oh yeah, that answers a lot of my questions right there too. But I mean, something else just to ask you, other than the issue with the National Guard, the federal troops, are there key things that you're going to be looking out for here over the next, say, coming months, rather than even a year from now?
Well, we have another legislative session come February. So, Christine Drazan's been appointed to the Senate. So I presume she's going to stick in that Senate seat. So one of the particulars of how Oregon politics and sort of rules work, the members of the House of Representatives can't raise money for a gubernatorial election like Christine Drazan, which is why she resigned from her position 4 years ago. The Senate doesn't have the same rules. And so she's going to be able to be in that Senate seat, raise money without having to resign. I would presume that Republicans in the legislature will try to create tension and bring up issues that help elevate the profile of Christine Drazan and the failures of Tina Kotek over the course of the short session beginning in February. So that's one thing to look out for. What exactly those things are, I think is a little tricky for me to say. But I would expect that they will use that legislative session in a way that wasn't used 4 years ago.
Gotcha. Something to elevate her profile, no matter what that may be, whatever those coming issues are. Awesome. Well, John, anything else that you think is important for people to know?
So typically when we look at turnout, although Democrats and Republicans typically turn out at high rates during gubernatorial elections, and at fairly similar rates, but Republicans tend to turn out at somewhat higher rates than Democrats in these gubernatorial elections, except in 2018. 2018 is an exception where Democrats turned out more than Republicans. Again, a lot of that had to do in 2018 during Trump's first term, sort of anti-Trump enthusiasm that just makes one more challenge for a Republican in this state when Trump is in the White House is that he tends to motivate Democrats. So that's one other just sort of dynamic to be aware of is just what turnout might be and who's going to be motivated, sort of independent even of the gubernatorial election.
Well, John, thank you very much for joining us for this too, just to get some analysis there and some better understanding of where we were then, where we are now, and what to expect here going forward. It's going to be interesting no matter what it is. But thanks, John. Thanks for joining us.
You bet.
All right, so big thank you to John Horvick there for joining us for that segment from DHM Research. There's lots of great data and analytics on their site that you can take a look at as well as at kptv.com. And this is Fox 12 Now. We live stream here out of the Fox 12 Oregon newsroom. So if you're watching us live, thanks for doing so. I recommend downloading the Fox 12 Oregon app because we're going to continue on there. If you're watching on another source or outlet, you may see this stream come to an end, but feel free to watch all of our past segments as well. We cover a wide range of topics here on the show. You can always send me an email, fox12now at kptv.com as well. And we'll have the latest on this and everything else at kptv.com and, of course, our other news shows as well. And right now, though, if you're watching on, say, YouTube, you're going to see this come to an end. If you're watching on our apps, stick right with me. We'll be back here in just a couple of minutes with plenty more to catch you up on. Thanks for joining us.